Hey guys, it's Mrs. Cutting here. If things are going the way that they're supposed to be, then today is Wednesday, and this is the first day that I am out at my training. All 3 days this week, you are going to be doing a video lesson. So in order to get started, you need to have your workbook open to page 29 and a pencil out. You and your talking partner are going to be doing some things together throughout this lesson. So you're both going to listen, you'll both pause when I ask you to pause, work on what I ask you to work on together, and then come back to the video. Alright, and I'm not going to have this full screen because my video recorder thing chops it off. Okay, so today we're doing lesson 5, which starts on page 29. Our learning goal for today is let's investigate equivalent ratios some more. And the first thing we're talking about is a recipe for tuna casserole. Now, if you're like me, you think tuna is disgusting and would never eat a tuna casserole, but that's beside the point. We're going to talk about it anyways. So this is a recipe for tuna casserole. When you cook with a recipe, you obviously have to follow it. So this asks for 3 cups of cooked elbow-shaped pasta, a 6-ounce can of tuna drained. Ugh, tuna juice is gross. 10-ounce can cream of chicken soup, 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and 1.5 cups of French fried onions. And then it's the directions for how to bake it. So you're mixing everything together, putting it in the baking dish, putting the rest of your cheese on top, baking it, and then putting the French fried onions on at the top. Let sit for 10 minutes before serving. Now, when you cook something, or especially when you bake something, you want to make sure that you follow the ingredients exactly. Like, I am not going to use like a 10-ounce can of tuna because then it's not quite going to taste right. It's going to have like way too much tuna in here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about ratios in cooking. So this is at the bottom of page 29. And this next part, you're going to be answering these questions together with your talking partner. So what is the ratio of the ounces of soup to the cups of shredded cheese to the cups of pasta in one batch of casserole? So since it asks for first the soup, then the cheese, then the pasta, that's the order you're going to list those numbers in. And then you're going to write out how much they would need of each of these ingredients to make 2 batches, half of a batch, 5 times the amount, and 1/5. What is the ratio of cups of pasta to ounces of tuna in one batch? And then how many batches would you make if you use the following amounts? After number 4, you're going to come back to the video and I will walk you through it. So at this point with your talking partner, you're going to pause and answer questions 1 through 4. They do go on to page 30 in your workbook. Okay, welcome back. I'm switching to my workbook, and I am hoping that you guys are doing a good job of still talking with your talking partners, even though I'm not here to watch you and we're coming back to the video rather than a live lesson, but we do what we gotta do. All right. So what is the ratio of ounces of soup to cups of shredded cheese to cups of pasta in one batch of the casserole? So the first thing it wanted was soup, and then cheese, and then pasta. So I'm going to list it in that order. So it was 10 ounces of soup, 1 cup of cheese, and 3 cups of pasta. So 10 to 1 to 3, or you could write it like this, 10 to 1 to 3. All right. Then on the next page, how much of each of these 3 ingredients would be needed to make twice the amount? Okay, so our ratio was 10 to 1 to 3. I'm going to write that up here so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. Okay, so to make twice the amount of casserole, well, if this is one batch, I'm just going to multiply each of those numbers by 2. So I'm going to do 10 times 2, 1 times 2, and 3 times 2. So that's 20 to 2 to 6. Then for half the amount of casserole, we have two options. We could divide them by 2, but we're going to be focusing on multiplying rather than dividing. So we're going to multiply by 1/2 here. So we're going to do 10 times 1/2, 1 times 1/2, and 3 times 1/2. So 10 times 1/2, sorry, that's a little bit blurry. 10 times 1/2, or 1/2 of 10, is going to be 5. 1 times 1/2 is just 1/2. And 3 times 1/2, well, half of 3, if I were to multiply straight across, I would get 3 over 2, but that's also 1 and 1/2. I hope we're not panicking over the fractions. Not too big of a deal. We're just barely touching them today. Okay, 5 times the amount of casserole. So for this one, I'm going to multiply each number by 5. So 10 times 5, 1 times 5, 3 times 5. So this would be 50 to 5 to 15. That's a lot of stuff. 1/5 the amount of casserole. So this time, I'm going to multiply each thing by 1/5. So I'm going to do 10 times 1/5, 1 times 1/5, and 3 times 1/5. When we multiply with fractions, we're just multiplying straight across. So 10 over 1 times 1 over 5 is 10 over 5, and 10 divided by 5 is just 2. This one, 1 times 1/5, is obviously just 1/5. And then 3 times 1/5, I can multiply straight across. That's just 3/5. So now I have 2 to 1/5 to 3/5. What is the ratio of cups of pasta to ounces of tuna in one batch of casserole? So pasta to tuna, I like to label so I don't get mixed up. And it was 3 cups of pasta to 6 ounces of tuna. How many batches of casserole would you make if you used the following amounts of ingredients? 9 cups of pasta and 8 ounces of tuna. So if instead of 3 to 6, if we used 9, did I say 8? I meant 18. 9 to 18. Okay, so here I'm going to be dividing. So I need to do, since, I can either say 3 times what is going to give me 9 and 6 times what is going to give me 18, or I can do 9 divided by 3 and 18 divided by 6, which would both give me 3, so I know it's 3 batches. So then we have, oh, they switched it around on us, they put it backwards. 16 ounces of tuna and 18 cups of pasta. So I'm going to write it the way that we had it. Draw myself a little arrow. They put it backwards just to try to confuse us. I know, they're so mean. Okay, so 18 to 36. So I can either say 3 times what is going to give me 18, or I can do 18 divided by 3 and 36 divided by 6, and both of those are going to give me 6, so it's 6 batches. And then 1 cup of pasta and 2 ounces of tuna. So let's see, they put it in the right order this time. Okay, so I have 1 to 2. So this time I'm going to do 1 divided by 3 and 2 divided by 6. 1 divided by 3, I can just keep that as a fraction. That's just 1/3. And 2 divided by 6 is 2/6, which reduces to 1/3. So this is 1/3 of a batch. So feel free to pause me. Just don't mute me. Feel free to pause me to show work if you didn't show work. Make corrections if you need to make corrections. And I think I need to go back to my slide. Okay, so then we have a couple more questions in the workbook. So we're skipping that "Are you ready for more" section that is on page 30, and we're jumping down to 5.3, what are equivalent What are equivalent ratios? And it says the ratios 5 to 3 and 10 to 6 are equivalent ratios. And you are going to answer questions 1 through 4 with your talking partner. And then number 5 says write a definition of equivalent ratios. You're going to complete this sentence. A ratio is equivalent to A to B when, and what this means is A and B can stand for any two numbers. So any ratio would be equivalent to whatever this ratio is if whatever happens. Okay. So you're going to pause and answer the questions in your workbook with your talking partner, 1 through 5. And here's that sentence prompt for number 5. A ratio is equivalent to A to B when ...